Love is a state of consciousness. Sometimes, even as large as the world is, as many pathways as there are, people find one another, Simon explained. An intersection is formed out of energy, not out of physical paths or roads. When this energy intersects, you're drawn to it just as water flows through a lattice of riverbeds or channels. Does it seem so improbable that the part of you that is all of you, what I just called the greater self, is able to orchestrate your reality through the expression of an energetic field, and that this field can go forward in spacetime and set forth the conditions that attract your physical self? I get it. I totally understand it here, Joseph exclaimed, pointing to his head, but the problem is that if it's being done unconsciously, I don't want my greater self engineering these challenges for me. My life is so complex it overwhelms me. I've had this obsession about the oracle for many years, and now, when most people my age are content to sit on their patios and read, I and myself hunted by the Supreme Guard. But you also enter yourself in dialogue with the sorcerer, who happens to be the first initiate who discovered the oracle and authored the Dorhman Prophecy. True, Joseph admitted, but still I'd prefer to know what trouble my greater self is concocting for me in the future. Why? Simon interrupted. To prepare myself. That's what your intuitive discernment is for, Simon replied. Joseph touched his bruised face gingerly. Yes, well, my intuitive discernment is impaired. Perhaps it's your trust that's faltering, Simon suggested. Perhaps, Joseph offered, his tone softening. But how can you trust your intuition? It's so imprecise. It's clay. When you arrived in this world, as a physical structure, you were mostly a beating heart, Simon began. And as this heart beat its rhythmic pattern, the body began to form a brain, limbs, and all of the other organs necessary to function in this world. But what came even before your beating heart, was the rhythm of your mother's heart, and the eld it generated each time it beat, and it is this that ignited you into physicality. The intuition was your RST form of intelligence, and it began in your heart, and it's entirely based on rhythmical patterns. It's nonlinear. It curves and flows. You must be the same if you want to trust what is your oldest, highest functioning organ within your body, which just happens to be your best resource for sensing what is to come, but not so you can simply be prepared, but more importantly, to understand and appreciate that which you create from the greater self. Simon stood up from the ground they had been sitting on and reached his hand to Joseph, helping him to his feet. I should be doing this for you, Joseph remarked. Your gratitude is enough, Simon said. Joseph smiled. Thanks, but before we go, you still didn't answer my previous question. Why is this all happening? Do you mean to you personally, or are you referring to the planet as a whole? Simon asked. Let me put it this way, Joseph said. The world's divided into good and evil, and the evil side, well, it seems to be winning. Really? And on what basis have you made that hypothesis? I know you don't read the newspaper or listen to the radio, or talk with people on the streets, Joseph explained, but people are frustrated that their lives have been orchestrated into meaninglessness. The kings of this world are ruthless in their methods of control, and maintaining the status quo. Zhao leaned against a tree and crossed his arms. Time is compressing, people are anxious, more divisions between groups and clans of people, and everyone's fuse just seems to be getting shorter. The church, state, merchants and scientists seem unaligned, nothing meshes, there's no harmony. Joseph, Simon interrupted calmly, there are vast rhythms that beat throughout the universe, and these large rhythms entrain, or affect, the smaller ones, and like a chain reaction they ultimately come right down to you and me. The heart that beats within you listens to these rhythms and the information contained within them. It knows when these rhythms are changing and life is being reformatted or adjusted for new energies and experiences, and it adjusts right down to the tiniest parts that constitute your presence in this world. Do you understand? Simon asked, looking directly into Joseph's for confirmation. Joseph nodded distracted, as if his thoughts were elsewhere. I think so, but it's also abstract when compared to the world at my feet. He looked at Simon with a new focus. I could adjust to the realities of the world if I knew my voice mattered. If I knew that the evil in the world was balanced by the good, and that the indifferent, the unthinking sheep in the middle, were being activated to put a stop to the evildoers, but I don't see any of that. Like any process, particularly of this magnitude, it appears to proceed unevenly, sometimes falling backwards, sometimes leaping forward. You can take sides with the good, the middle, as you put it, or the evil, but all dimensions of this are part of a larger whole, and it's this wholeness that's being adjusted and realigned to a grander wholeness or integration, and this takes time. How much time? Joseph asked. Will I see it in my lifetime? Left double quotation mark. Simon shook his head. Does it matter if you see it? Do you need confirmation to live in the world at your feet? Will this confirmation make you live differently? Perhaps it would, Joseph replied. It'd give me hope, that's for sure. Simon took his large staff and leaned against it as if he were becoming tired of standing in one place. Then have faith that the wholeness of universe is in the hands of an intelligence that guides it unfailingly into a richer light, into a higher dimension of existence in which humanity will one day be free in every way. So this is all about freedom. It's all about love, Simo answered cryptically. I hate to sound like I'm repeating myself, Joseph responded, but these concepts are abstractions better left for fairy tales or religious books so far as I'm concerned. There's nothing abstract about love, Simon replied. And I'm not talking about love as humanity has come to define it. Love is the wholeness of human virtues, in particular 6 heart virtues: appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding, and valor. These virtues collectively intermingle and form the condition of love. Love is a state of consciousness. When you live within the 6 heart virtues, you are conditioning love to be of a higher frequency. Love, like anything else, is a continuum of human expression, ranging from the awkward, selfish expression of a person possessed of his or her own glory, to that of a Asta, who has perfected their expression in the crucible of their heart. You can define the entire continuum as love, but they are quite different. Love, as a state of consciousness, is simply living in the expression of the 6 heart virtues. Yes, but how many people are saints? Joseph asked. How many can really live in that state? From my experience, none. That's how many. Simon shook his head and wagged his staff at Joseph. Ask me another rhetorical question and be prepared to end your way back on your own. Joseph looked down at his boots to avert Simon's glare. Sorry, but even that. What just did is that outburst part of the 6 heart virtues. Didn't I just prove my point? Joseph turned his eyes to Simon as the last words left his mouth. I'm not a saint, Simon admitted. I'm a sorcerer, I thought you knew that. A subtle smile fell across his face as he spoke. Part of this state of consciousness is the belief, the feeling of certainty, that everyone, even those who are misguided, are trying their best to cope, to be civil, to be and do good. We often fall short, some more than others, but love is a state of consciousness, not a state of perfection. Simon softened his posture, returning to his characteristic lean on his staff. Emotions are mercurial. They fluctuate and shift, and you have to willing to forgive your limitations of tolerance, sensitivity, rationality, and everything else that keeps you in balance. In my outburst, Simon continued, I was aware of my emotions, my words, and my tone. In that awareness, I knew you would receive it as a rebuff, but I wanted to deliver it this way. It was quite conscious. Now, you've given me feedback that it was too extreme, and perhaps it was, but I've softened my tone and made adjustments. I've forgiven myself by altering my emotional state. Love was practiced in interaction by my understanding and forgiveness and a little bit of valor in allowing me to be vulnerable. You see, the heart virtues are intermingled as an expression your state of consciousness. This is how your state of consciousness reacts your state of being. The state of being is your spiritual center, the place in which you leave your signature upon this world of space-time, not as deeds or creations of materiality, but as a vibration. And what does this vibration do? Joseph asked. It conditions your space-time to a higher tone, and this tone, or vibration, is equality, centered in love, and expressed through the heart virtues from which love extends. If only one person lived in this way, and everyone else on earth was a godless heathen, then an opening is made in which the tone of equality and a higher dimensional understanding of love can occur for everyone. It doesn't mean that everyone will take notice and embrace this new vibration, but it opens the possibility of love upon this planet. Everything, and I mean single step of progress in the ascension of humanity, began with a single human being who chose to express the virtues of their heart. It isn't brought here from some heavenly post, nor did God ordain it. It's the free will of a single person who decides, who simply chooses to express from their heart's wisdom. One does it so another can follow, and soon it becomes possible for others to do it, and it spreads because these virtues are contagious since they are non-judgmental. And this is all a vibration that I can feel or hear. Joseph asked, still looking perplexed. You said this wasn't abstract, but it is for me. Simon picked up a large branch that had fallen from the storm and stripped off 3 smaller branches, placing them like spokes of a wheel with his hand as the hub. Do you see these lines? Joseph nodded silently. There are 3 branches and 6 ends. Let's say the center, where my hand is holding these, is love, and each of these ends represents one of the 6 heart virtues. Simon pointed to each end with his free hand, reciting the virtues as he went. Appreciation, compassion, forgiveness, humility, understanding and valor. Now love lives here. The intersection, where each of these virtues converge at the hub, but love moves outward along each of these branches, and assumes the character of one of the heart virtues when it does. Love can move outward symmetrically or asymmetrically, but it is love that dons the virtues and expresses itself through the virtues. This love, with its 6 characteristics, can be infused in anything and everything. When it's expressed from your heart with authentic care, it changes all things. It is the vibration of equality that is the atom of love's existence, and this vibration is what knits together the polarities that divide us. Not in some magical belief or spoken mantra, but in our behaviors. How we express ourselves. Simon dropped the branches to the ground and took his water flask, pouring some water into his cupped hand. Do you see this water? Yes, Joseph whispered, raising a skeptical eyebrow. Our brightest scientists, Simon explained, have studied water and can tell us its chemical properties and physical characteristics, but they cannot make clear what it is. Scientists don't understand something as simple and prevalent as water. And yet, water is a metaphor for life. It can transform into different states. It's extremely malleable. It hours through pathways of least resistance. It can overcome the strongest of obstacles given time. Water and life are allies, and as I hold it in my hand, I'm infusing my vibration into it. How? Joseph asked. Because I decided I can, Simon answered. We're back to faith? No, Simon interrupted. Not faith, choice. I'm holding this water in my hand, and before I drink it, I'll infuse it with love, not because I have faith that it will make a difference, but because it's the practice I've chosen to take. It's a decision. Okay, but didn't you decide to do this because you have faith that your practice will enhance the water and bring you health, or well-being? Simon shook his head and smiled. The vibration of love that I've crafted over my lifetime is not something to hold within me, or to express it for my personal gain. Its beauty is only useful when shared with all things because it is, as I said before, at its innermost core the tone of equality, and once it's withheld from one thing, it's diminished. Joseph watched as Simon took his cupped hand, and gently flung the water into his mouth. Did you learn all of this from the oracle? Joseph asked. No, it came from myself. How? I listened to what's inside me, I practiced what I heard, I observed the results, and I made decisions on how to navigate based on this information. If you do this enough times, you'll learn how to cultivate the vibration of equality and become a craftsman of love. It's that simple, is it? I didn't say it was simple, Simon corrected. Simon picked up 2 of the burlap bags, inching them over his shoulder. We should get back, I'm sure Maya and Camel are hungry. Joseph picked up the remaining bags. So it's all about choice. There's nothing magical or supernatural with it. It's just choice. No, it's not just choice, Simon smiled. Choice is the beginning step, but it's how you provision the love within you and learn to express it through the virtues of the heart. Look around you, Joseph, Simon advised. Do you see the landscape of this forest, or do you see the landscape of your heart within this forest? I don't understand, Joseph mumbled, shaking his head. It's your choice to view your present environment as trees and bushes, streams and grasses, but the energy within you, that is you, is not seen or heard. It is felt. So you must feel the world through your heart, and then see world around you. In that order.